Hey, good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. Welcome into it. This is called Trail Tidbits, Volquest.com. I'm Eric Kane. Matt Ray, his time to shine. We take a look at Tennessee targets, Tennessee commits for the class of 2024, and what they're doing in the high school ranks. We are already, we believe, we put our heads together before recording this. We believe this is week 6. I should know this since I work in high school football and since Matt covers high school football recruiting. We believe it's week 6, but again, we say this every single week, man. It's hard to believe you're entering the last month of the regular season before the playoffs start.
Yeah, I mean, it's been there were some big games this past weekend for just across the country in general, but for fall targets, fall commits, just big time football games, and you're in that final push to the playoffs, And some states now it's not as hard to make the playoffs as it is others, but in a lot of these states and a lot of these classifications, it is harder. And seeding matters, obviously. So it's some big football games going on, and there was some Tennessee commits shining. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but you know, it's a big weekend coming up on Rocky Top for the Vols with some 2024 guys coming in.
Yeah, big time weekend, and we'll start there too. At the time of this recording, again, things can always change. We'll have more in the war room, Matt and AP, but at the time of this recording, got a couple of OVs coming in. We'll start first with Daniel Hill, running back from the state of Mississippi. He's been here a couple different times. That's a Tennessee, that's a South Carolina, that's a an Alabama battle, but coming in for an official visit and a good chance for Tennessee to put on a good show.
Yeah, for Tennessee, this recruitment's continued to extend. Daniel Hill has had a couple of different timelines, and he's backed off of those timelines. And now, if you're Tennessee, you get to take advantage. You get an official visit shot. You had him here in May at 865 Live and laid some groundwork. And really, since then, it's been quiet, but he's continued to have positive conversation with Jerry Mack. Alabama and South Carolina are definitely the two teams that Tennessee's chasing, in my opinion. But for Tennessee this weekend, you're going to have a chance to make your move with Daniel Hill. He's coming out for a reason. He's continued to push things around for a reason. And the Vols are going to have a chance to swing big here this weekend, and they will. Now, it helps as you have South Carolina coming to town if things go according to plan, right, Eric?
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you can beat somebody that, you're competing against on the field, it helps you. So for Tennessee this weekend, they'll have a chance to do that. Expect them to run the ball some against the South Carolina front. So a lot of things can line up for Daniel Hill this weekend that Tennessee's been pitching to him. He's a guy that can do a lot of things that fits this offense. Jerry Mack has built a strong rapport with him, has recruited that area in Mississippi very hard. So, the Vols are going to swing, and then from there, we'll see where things go. But this is a big visit to get Daniel Hill back to campus.
It's a really good opportunity, like you said. I mean, you got South Carolina that did pretty well against the run against Mississippi State, but not very good against the run. Georgia ran all over them. North Carolina ran all over them. And, Tennessee didn't have its best foot forward in the swamp running the football, but you think this is a much better running team, at least right now, than it is through the aerial attack. Put that on display. Daniel Hill running back, and again, running all over a team that you're trying to beat out for Daniel Hill. I think that'd be really, really good for Tennessee with Daniel Hill in town. Another one, Tennessee's been high on him. We've talked about him quite some week after week on Trail Tidbits. Cam Michael coming in for his official visit, the athlete, but Tennessee likes him a wide receiver.
Yeah, this is another big visit for Cam Michael. I think when you look at it, we touched on him last week. We've touched on him several weeks before. It continues to feel like that timeline for Cam Michael is maybe moving forward a little bit. We'll see. These things seem to change by the minute nowadays. But it felt like late November, at the earliest at one point. Now it's feeling like maybe, end of October, early November, potentially creeping in there to mid-November. But he moved his official visit with Tennessee from November 18th when they were hosting Georgia to this weekend. He'll see Texas A&M officially next weekend. And then after that, we'll see where things kind of go. He's tentatively scheduled to get to Kentucky for an official visit at some point in October. We'll see if that one happens. But I think Cam Michael's really taking some visits. He's been to Florida. He's been to South Carolina the last 2 weekends. Now he'll go to Tennessee, Florida and South Carolina over the last 2 weekends. Now he's at Tennessee this weekend on an official visit. So he's really checking some boxes and trying to, in my opinion, work toward a decision. So for Tennessee, you've been at or near the top of this one for a while. You've connected very well with him. Kelsey Pope, Joey Halsley have done an excellent job. And then now you get a chance to really make one of those final pitches and that final big impression as you try to hold off Texas A&M, Colorado, and then Georgia's obviously in the mix. But to me, have they pivoted yet? I'm not sure. I can't say. The decommitment of Nye Carr at wide receiver certainly makes things more interesting. Is Georgia going to circle back around to Cam Michael and recruit him as a wide receiver? Definitely possible. But to me, they have been unrelenting in pursuing him as a defensive back. How receptive is he to that at this point? And that's something we may get an answer to. But right now, I feel like it's Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Colorado. With Georgia certainly still in the mix. You just can't rule out the back-to-back national champions and the home state schools. So this one's got some intrigue heading towards the finish line.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Those national championships back-to-back, you can't rule that out. One of my favorite things, I mean, those are the OVs. Those are some of the big ones, and we'll continue to talk about that as the week goes on. One of my favorite things about game days is a lot of times that's when that seed's planted, right?
Yeah.
Don't take that the wrong way, but you got these 25, 26s, junior, sophomore, freshmen coming in. Stop smiling over there. And this is the first time they truly get to see, not just at Tennessee, but anywhere, a game day experience, all that type of stuff. The team, sure, but the atmosphere, the fans, the ball walk, running through the tee, all that stuff. And so a lot of big time 25s coming in, and if they have a good time, you get it back for junior days. Then if they have a good time there, you get it back for spring practice. And if they had a good time, you get it back for an OV. It really kind of starts that cycle. A couple 25s we'll talk about first is a big old defensive lineman from the state of South Carolina, Amari Adams, 25, 6'6", 250. He plans to be in town watching Tennessee against South Carolina.
Yeah, this is the guy that Tennessee had in at the end of July for the final recruiting event of the summer. That visit went well, and now he's going to be back in town to watch Tennessee play the home state school. I think he's connected well with Rodney Garner and the defensive staff, and likes some of the opportunities that Tennessee can present to him. Just a really athletic guy that, as you can see there, gets after the quarterback. Matches some things that Tennessee really likes to do up front. So this is one of those visits. It's going to be big for him to experience this game day type thing. I think when you look back to last fall, and we touch on this a lot, and not to beat a dead horse here, but a lot of this 2024 class was built off of game day experiences last fall. There are some, obviously, that didn't make it into a game day, like William Satterwhite didn't make it in. Gage Ginther didn't make it in, but Tennessee was able to get those across the line without it. But for the most part, Jake Merklinger here for a big game. Mike Matthews here for a big game. Jordan Ross here for a big game. These guys, it started, as you said, Eric, that cycle. So these game days, even the UTSA game day, it's big for some guys. Mid-state guy, CJ Jim Cooley, a guy that Tennessee's recruiting at Lipscomb. It was his first game day experience. He even noted to me, wasn't the biggest game in the world, but man, to see kind of everything that I've been told about and how the fans interacted and how the players were, it all lined up. And Tennessee so far has been really, really good at crushing those game day visits. It helps when you win, right? It helps when you beat Kentucky last year. It helps when you beat Alabama. It helps when you've checkered Neyland and you beat Florida. All those things go into effect. So you've got dark mode at night against South Carolina. It can be a big visit weekend for the Vols, and you can make an impression with a guy like Amari Adams.
Another guy that's going to be in here for the class of 2025 is going to be Jonte Gilbert, an athlete, wide receiver, defensive back. Tennessee likes him, at least right now, on the defensive side of the football. He's been here a couple different times. He's going to be in here, and you're right, man. When you have a big-time game, especially a night game, and a game that you need to win, you're going to have the dark mode activated, the black jerseys. I mean, what an experience to really kind of start elevating this recruitment if this is a guy that you're going to take down the line. And, Jonte Gilbert might be one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at Jonte Gilbert, he's been here a handful of times already. He was a guy that, they camped over the summer. They worked him out hard. A lot of schools are still trying to figure out a positional fit for Jonte Gilbert, and it's not in a bad way, right? Like, he's playing corner here in the film, and he's pretty fluid at corner, but at the same time, he's big, and he can play safety, and he can get downhill, and he can hit. So this is a guy that just can do a lot of things at the high school level. And how does that translate to the next level? He was committed to Ohio State, but it just didn't feel like that one was going to stick. Um, you know, for him, I think the process was pretty fast early on. Now it's slowing down. He's seeing schools. He's trying to get this thing right. And he continues to make his way back to Tennessee. So we'll see where things go with him and the Vols. But South Carolina's the school that's involved. Southern Cal's the school that's involved. Georgia Tech's the school that's heavily involved. Georgia's shown some interest there over time. Florida's picked up interest even more. So for Jonte Gilbert, a guy that I think reset his recruiting process over the summer and is getting back out and trying to go about it in a way that he feels will get him to a final decision at some point, probably ahead of his senior season.
I'll tell you what, man. Doing these impact analysis for many, many years. I know you do them now, but sitting here looking at the film, watching him, taking notes. You see, we've seen tons and tons of huddle tapes, but if you're watching on YouTube right now, you see Jonte's right. You can respect it because he circles where he's at. A lot of times it pops up and says what's coming up. Fourth down stop, big hit. It doesn't have the bark, rough, big hit, dog. It's like, this one looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's some. It's just like you've got the circle, and then you've got lightning coming out, and you've got like, when's this play going to start, right? And I think a lot of times kids don't understand this, but coaches only put so much time into how much of their huddle.
Yeah.
Of your huddle film that they're going to watch. So when you've wasted 30 seconds on the graphic, circle yourself, fire the play, and let's go. Put your three best plays at the front, and you're going to have a better chance to get offered.
Huddle is good for people like us. It's good for fans. Game tape is what coaches are really after.
Absolutely.
Let's look at some of the Tennessee commits stat roundup from the week. We do it every single week right here on Trail Tidbits. Got a couple of stats here for this week, and we'll start with Jake Merklinger. Pretty pedestrian, little 14 to 22, 244 a touchdown, little 10 attempts on the ground, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. Old Jake Merklinger, who's going to be in town this weekend, and I'll let you list some other ones later on, but another good game for Tennessee's class, a 2024 signal caller.
A big game in a lot of different routes for him. A game that he felt like they needed to win going into the back half of the schedule. Savannah Christian, a tough school, home to a top 5 player in the 2025 class in Elijah Griffin. So a game that was physical, a game that saw Jake Merklinger continue to be efficient with the football. But then, you saw this in one of their other games. When he has to take over with his legs, he can impact the game with his legs. He's not a guy that's just going to come out and just beat you with his legs. But if you don't get to him, he's very athletic. He can hurt you with his legs. And, man, he is off to a stellar start through the first 5 games of his senior season. Back in town this weekend, and I think that's big.
Jake Merklinger obviously doing what he does week in and week out. Another guy that plays, football for a run-heavy school, but 6 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Matthews continuing to embrace that physicality of the game and put up some numbers.
Yeah, I think when you look at Mike Matthews' schedule, we talked about it being run-heavy. This was the week for Parkview that it couldn't be just run-heavy where we can pound it down your throat all night long. You're playing Mill Creek. You're playing the defending 7A state champions. Caleb Downs not there anymore, obviously. He's at Alabama and looks like he's probably going to be a freshman All-American. But Mill Creek still loaded with talent, and Parkview had to throw the football this week, and you see it there. 6 receptions for Mike Matthews, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Those 6 receptions, to me, stands out alone. Parkview threw it a lot more overall, but when we covered Mike Matthews maybe last week or the week before, Parkview had only thrown it 5 times in that game and won it, using the run game. So this was the game that the Parkview offense had to try to take another step. They ultimately didn't win, but they competed pretty thoroughly in a 30-20 loss to Mill Creek.
All right, and then we will conclude here with Braylon Staley. He was a guest on Trail Tidbits last week, did a great job. Both you guys did. 6 receptions, 141 yards, and a touchdown. One of the best players in the state of South Carolina, one of the fastest players, one of the best receivers. Continues to do his thing, and he's when you kind of can at the end of the season, maybe we'll kind of compile some stats and everything. But I mean, he's getting up there. He's put up some numbers.
Yeah, he talked about it last week. That 1,000-yard mark has been
Yeah.
elusive to him. Man, he's going to have a real chance to chase it down this fall, and it's just every time you see him, he throws up some kind of crooked number. This week 141 on 6 receptions and a touchdown. He's a really tough mismatch for anybody right now. A guy that I think is only going to continue to see his stock rise. Some schools have continued to reach out. I touched about this on the Generals Quarter. Georgia's been in contact. Florida's been in contact. Right now, he says he has absolutely no interest in going and visiting those schools. This is recruiting. Anything can change. But, for Tennessee, they locked him in June and he remains locked in. We'll see if he makes it in for a visit this weekend, but I don't think it's going to go much further until he's back in town to see Tennessee again.
And then Matt, as we kind of shut the door here on this week's edition of Trail Tidbits, big week, big home game. We mentioned a couple of official visitors, but also you getting some a heavy dose of your committed class is going to be in town as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see Jake Merklinger back in town. And, I think he's such an underrated piece of this class in just the way that he's worked behind the scenes, the way that he carries himself. These guys kind of gravitate toward him. So it's big to have him back in town this weekend. You'll see Boo Carter back in town. Obviously the storyline a couple of weeks ago was his visit to Colorado. So it's big for Tennessee to get him back in town and continue to work that one. I say this time and time again, Eric, but when you have good football players committed to you, the recruiting process is never going to stop for those guys, and it's not going to stop for Boo Carter. And Tennessee's going to have to continue to recruit him to the finish line. So he'll play in Farragut on Friday night, and he'll be back in Knoxville on Saturday night. Caleb Beasley expected in town. Edwin Spillman expected in town. Mike Matthews expected in town. Overall, a core group of this 2024 class expected to be here. Should be a great time for them, as we've already mentioned several times. Dark mode, night game. They'll get an experience of what that's like again. And I think when you look at those guys, they're going to be more comfortable because they all experienced some of that last fall. It's going to allow them to relate to some of the younger recruits that come in. And I think that list, as it starts to shape up heading into the weekend, obviously it's midweek here. We'll start to learn a little bit more about that as the week plays out. But I think that list can be a pretty solid list, of underclass or 2025, 2026 visitors for Tennessee.
Yeah, you're talking about Boo Carter and Bradley Central. Just a little rivalry Thursday note for those who take part every Thursday night here in East Tennessee. We're going to be at Bradley Central October the 26th, Bearden at Bradley Central, so should be a good game. 2 Tennessee commits going to be showcasing that one. So speaking of Boo Carter, and of course Gory's going to be there as well. So looking forward to that one. We'll keep you updated all year long on Trail Tidbits. We are recapping Week 6, about to go into Week 7. Matt Ray, Eric Kane here at Volquest.com. Appreciate you guys for being here, and we'll do it again next week right here on Trail Tidbits.